TEDx is the most important educational and cultural event at Ohio State University, and I am so honored that you came out to hear me today. And that was bullshit. In the strict academic sense, bullshit and lying are both forms of misrepresentation with this critical difference. When I lie, I know what is true and I deliberately say the opposite. When I bullshit, I don't care at all about what is true. In bullshit, the misrepresentation does not have to do with the statement, it has to do with the person making the statement. The purpose of bullshit is to deceive you about what the bullshitter is up to. So I said, most important educational cultural event, that is a completely meaningless statement and I don't care if it's true. I only said it so that you would take me seriously. This comes out of the work of Harry Frankfurt. He was a Princeton philosophy professor who in the mid-'80s published a paper on bullshit. The paper was widely circulated and discussed quite a bit in his circles, so much so that in 2005 he published it as a book. The book became a bestseller and he even got invited onto The Daily Show. And he kept working with these ideas and then wrote a second book on truth in 2013. And that stuff I said at the beginning, that's normal garden variety puffery, the stuff we say to grease the wheels of social interaction. And for some kinds of social interaction, bullshit may actually be necessary. This is me with my wife, Nancy Nearing. She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. That may not be factually accurate, but I believe it, which in romance is all that counts. There's also an implication that I never notice other beautiful women. That's not much of a deception. Nancy knows that's not true. But she also knows that I adore her and that I'm completely faithful, so it's all good. Frankfurt says we actually need bullshit in romance, otherwise you wouldn't have Shakespeare's sonnets. There are, however, other situations that tend to breed bullshit, and in these you need to be a bit more suspicious. And I like to illustrate them by using famous TV bullshit heroes. So you're in the situation where you have gone way beyond your knowledge and expertise, so you need to make stuff up to save face. And that is the life and work of George Costanza on Seinfeld. We are expected to have opinions about absolutely everything, even things about which you have given no thought at all, which brings to mind Cliff Clavin on Cheers. And this one's actually toxic and this one's serious. There's the boss who uses bullshit as an instrument of power. And nobody ever did that better than Michael Scott, who spun such a deep, sticky web of bullshit that he started to believe himself. And then he lost all touch with reality. And it's a joke on a TV show, but it's actually illustrative of Frankfurt's central point. His hypothesis is that bullshit is actually more damaging than lies, because the habit of bullshit causes you to lose the essential critical faculty of paying attention to the way things really are. So you can think of bullshit as like a drug. You're in an uncomfortable situation, you use a little bit of bullshit to ease the pain, it's easy, it doesn't have any side effects. But if every time reality slaps you in the face, you resort to bullshit, well, your tolerance goes up, pretty soon you are an addict, you don't care what is true anymore, you move into darker levels of untruth, like scams and conspiracy theories. And this doesn't just happen to individuals, it can happen to a society. Frankfurt postulates 3 cultural conditions in which bullshit thrives and truth weakens. And I've come to think of it as kind of a negative feedback loop. Bullshit thrives when there is so much information out there that the average person has trouble separating fact from not fact. Bullshit thrives when we begin to prefer sincerity over accuracy, belief over fact. Bullshit thrives when there's a breakdown in the cultural consensus that truth matters. When I look at events over the past 10, 15 years, I find evidence that Frankfurt's theory bears out. I brought along a few artifacts. I'm going to zoom to 2004. So we are post 9/11, post-Second Iraq War, and a journalist named Ron Susskind goes to do an investigation on how it is that the Bush administration got it wrong on weapons of mass destruction. He talks to an official in the Bush administration, says, okay, it turns out there were no weapons of mass destruction. That was your justification for war. Is this a problem? And the aide famously answers, it's only a problem for you because you live in the reality-based world. The people we talk to believe the reality that we invent. Why is he so sure this will work? Well, because he understands truthiness. Think of what happened in the 90s, the explosion of new media, and communications scholars observed two parallel trends. First, everybody can get their story out, so everybody is a journalist and anyone can be an authority. And then going along with that, a consumer can choose the source of information who will always confirm what he already believes. Media empires are built on this, and Stephen Colbert satirizes it in the Colbert Report, which is a send-up of the O'Reilly factor from Fox News. And in his first episode in 2005, he introduces his big theme, truthiness, and he is all for it. He says, I don't trust books. They are all facts and no heart. And it's a satire, but serious media critics say that he nailed it. Farhad Manjoo writes a book, True Enough, and he devotes a chapter to truthiness. And Merriam-Webster names truthiness their word of the year. Okay, so I've got a Republican president and conservative media. Don't get too comfortable, liberals. Frankfurt also calls out the academic left, which has been waging its own war on truth. In postmodernist discourse, it is an article of faith that there is no such thing as objective truth. In fact, when I give talks on bullshit, I can expect that somebody in the audience is going to raise their hand and say, in pretty much this tone of voice, in the humanities, we do not accept the notion of truth. And I've got more of this, but basically, that's game, set, and match. On all sides, a contempt for truth, the triumph of belief over fact, and by the way, when did authenticity become a thing? And an unending, undiscriminating deluge of information. This is the bullshit apocalypse. We are on the precipice of losing the reality-based world because my generation is hopelessly addicted to bullshit. We have given you alternative facts and fake news. At this moment, there are actually responsible journalists conducting a serious conversation about how, when the President of the United States makes up some crazy stuff, should you take him seriously or literally? That is bullshit about bullshit, people. We have achieved. That is bullshit about bullshit. We have achieved meta bullshit. But I have a growing sense that there's a younger generation still paying attention. I was very impressed how you all reacted to the Bowling Green massacre. I believe you can save the world by making war on bullshit, and I want to talk about how you do it. Defend truth. When somebody decides, I do not accept the notion of truth, it's just that, it's just a decision. You can work for truth. It's hard. You have to pay close attention. You have to work with your own biases and misperceptions, and you will often be uncertain, but you will always know when something is definitely not true. Do your homework. We college professors, we teach you how to source information. That is not just an academic skill, that is a life skill. And if what you know about your world comes from surfing Breitbart or HuffPost or watching guys yell at each other in cable TV, you are hanging out in the crack houses of bullshit addiction. Learn to argue. And I mean argument in the classical sense. An argument is a discussion between people of divergent views who are prepared to work on an issue until they can figure out what is true. We suck at this right now. We have stuff that looks like argument. It's debate. It's propaganda. It's advocacy. It is about beating up your opponent. It's about winning. It is not about finding out what's true. Learn to listen. Learn to ask good questions. Look for mistakes, especially your own. Argument is how you test your ideas and your integrity, and especially it's how you suss out bullshit. And as you gain confidence in argument, have the courage to break silence. There is a reason why when you were a kid, we told you that story about the emperor's new clothes. And isn't that actually a great reason to have a college education? I mean, you may not end up with the career that you want. You may change course 6 or 7 times. But find some great minds, and you should come out of school with a well-functioning bullshit detector. And when you do, I have a mission for you. After all, only you can prevent bullshit wildfires. Thank you very much for listening.